Section 5.5, factoring. Factoring is opposite of multiplications. So let's say we need to multiply 5 times 3x minus 4 or you want to multiply 4x5 times x2 minus 4x plus 5. Multiplication has only one rule. What you have outside of the parentheses, you distribute that into the parentheses. So that would make it 15x minus 20. Or here, when you distribute, that would be 4x7 minus 16x6 plus 20 x5. Okay? Now, what is factoring? Factoring is opposite of multiplication, means you want to do it backward. Like when we ask you to factor 6, factor 6 means find two numbers whose multiplication is 6. Then you say, okay, it's 2 and 3. So when we ask you to factor 15x minus 20, that means we want to find these two. You have a number in the parentheses that when you multiply, the product is this. Find those two. Or here, when we ask you to factor this, means we want you to do it backward, and when we ask you to factor this, means find these two. So factoring has a different methods and rules in order to find the original terms and parentheses or variables that you multiply, you come up with that. The first method of factoring is, there are two terms here. You remember, terms are always separated by plus or minus. You see if there is any common number between these two. 15 and 20, they both have 5 in common. So if I factor 5 out, what is left is 3x minus 4. See, this is factoring. Is you worked on this one and you came up with that. Or when we ask you to factor this, first you look, there are 3 numbers, 4, 16, 20. They all share 4. Then I have x7, x6, x5. The lowest power is x5. So you take that out. So then what is left from each of this is x2 minus 4x plus 5. So that's the first method of factoring. Okay, let's look at this one. You want to factor 39x to the power of 5th, y to the power of 5th minus 26 x to the power of 4, y to the power of 5. Okay? So what you do is first you look to see 39 and 26, what number do they both have in common? 39 is 3 times 13. 26 also is 13 times 2. So you see they both have 13 in common. So 39 and 26, the common number is 13. They both have x in it. One is x to the power of 4 and x to the power of 5. You always take the lower one. And they both have the same thing, y to the power of 5. Then we open a parenthesis. Now, to see what you put in the parentheses is, you take each of these and divide by that. What is 39x by 5 divided by that? I'll show you here. When you divide these two, what do you have? 13 goes to 39 is 3. x4 and x5 is just leave x. y4 and y5 is y. Now, how do I know it's correct? If I take this 13, x4, y5 and multiply by this, you should come up with that. Then you take this minus 26x4 and you divide that by the common factor. Okay. So in that case, these two cancel. 13 goes to minus 26 is minus 2. See, this is how to factor. I have extra here. So 3x minus 2 in the parentheses and that. You want to factor that. There are two terms. They both have x. I'll take the one that has lowest power, which is x to the power of 5th. Then you take each and divide by that. So you would say x to the power of 6 divided by x 5th. That would be x. And then 5x 5th to the power of x 5th. That would be 5. So x to the power of 5 times x to the power of 5. 20 A6 B7 plus 5 AB3 minus 30 AB5. 25 and 30, what do they all have in common? 5. A6, A1, A1. The lowest power is A1. They all have A. B7, B3, B5. The lowest one is B3. So this is your common factor. You open a parenthesis. So again, you take each of these and divide by that. See, 20A6B7 divided by this is what? 5 goes to 24. A and A6 is A to power of fifth. B3 and B7 is B4. Then you take the second one, 5AB3 divided by 5AB3. Nothing left, 1. Then the last one, 30 AB to power of 5, 5AB3. It's minus 6. A and A cancel, B3 and B2. All right, so now we look at the second method of factoring. So let's say you want to factor this. 18xy 15x 6y plus 5. Now, there are 4 terms. First, look at the numbers. 18, 15, 6, and 5. Do they have any number in common? No. Do they all have x? No. Do they all have y? No. So these 4 terms, they do not all have any number or variable in common. So that brings us to the second method of factoring. Second method of factoring, they call it group factoring. Normally, you need to have 4 terms. So what you do is you divide it into 2 groups. And it's like 2 separate problems, okay? Now these two, 18 and 15, what do they have in common? 3. They both have x, so 3x is the common variable here. What is left? 18xy divided by 3x is what? 5y. How do I know it's correct? You multiply back. 3x times 5y is 15xy. 15xy divided by 3x is 5. It should be 6. Now the second one, I would say they both have 1 in common. All the terms have 1 in common. So you can write it like that. See, because if you multiply 1 by 6, if you distribute 1, 6y plus y doesn't change. What you need to remember is this. In the group factoring, these 2 parentheses must be identical. That's why before I factor this, I know that my parenthesis is 6y plus 5. So I can put 6y plus 5, and then I say, well, I need a number here, just put 1. Now, you open 2 parentheses. They both have 6y plus 5, so you put that in one of the parentheses. Now, what do I put in the second parenthesis? If you hide these 2, what is left? 3x plus 1. You see that? That would be your second parenthesis. That's the factoring of that polynomial. Now, if you want to check, you could always check. In fact, it's a very good idea to check, especially when you take a test. You could distribute this to see if you come up with that. Yes, because 6 times that would be 18xy. 6 times y is 6y. 15x and 5. See, because remember, multiplication is opposite of factoring. So you could always check your factors and see if you come up with the result. Again, before I start the second method, first you should always check to see if the first method works or not. Do they all have any number or variable in common? No. So in that case, I have 4 terms. I think of the group factor. You divide it into 2 problems. The first problems, they both have y in common. So factor y out. All right. Now, when you factor the first one and you want to factor the second one, what you need to understand is this. Before I factor this, I know the parentheses must be x plus 2. So you put that one there. Then all I need to do is find a number here that when you distribute, it gives you minus 8x. What number is that? Negative 8. See? In that case, you don't have to factor the second one because you know the parentheses must be always identical to this. So now you open two parentheses, x plus 2, and then you put y minus 8 in the second parenthesis. It doesn't matter if you write it as y minus 8 times x plus 2, okay? So position of parentheses are not important in multiplication. So 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 2 also is 6. So whether you write it x plus 2 times y minus 8 or y minus 8 times x plus 2, both are correct. Again, so what you need to remember is this. All you need to do is really factor the first one. Then you take these parentheses, put it back here, and you try to figure the number. Some of the problem, we just give it to you like this, factor this. Look, we do the first part for you. So in that case, you already know that this is your common parentheses. You pull that out. What is left to put in the second parenthesis? 4x plus 7. You see, when you pull this out, what is left? 4x plus 7. So some of the problems we did the first part, and we want you to just put the final one here. Again, before you think of group factoring, first try to see if do they have any numbers that are variable in common? No. Then you think of group factoring, okay? They both have 3x in common. That's the factor. When you do the first one, make sure check to see if it's correct or not, because then you need to put these parentheses here. So 3x times x is 3x2, 3x times y is 3xy, okay? Now take these parentheses and put it here. Now I have to put a number here that when I distribute, it gives me minus 5x. What is that number? Negative 5. All right, so two parentheses, x plus y, and what is left when you hide these two? 3x minus 5. See, problem like this, you need to understand that if you don't know that you have to put these parentheses here, then you wonder what is factoring here. All right. So before I factor, I'll take this and put it here. Remember? Okay. So what should I put here? That when I multiply by 2y, it just gives me minus 2y. Negative 1. Okay. So you have 3x minus 1 times 2y minus 3. So they all are very similar here. Look, AC plus 2A minus 4C minus 8. I factor A, C plus 2. I'll put that C plus 2 here. Then what number times C is minus 4C? Negative 4. So is A minus 4 times C plus 2. Okay, so that would be end of the method number.